All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're talking about Rulona, a legal framework that is absolutely changing the game for notaries public. If you're a notary, this is something you really need to understand.
You know, the world of notarization used to be pretty straightforward, right? It was all about in-person meetings, paper documents, and good old-fashioned wet ink signatures. But that world, it's basically gone. Now we're in an era of remote and digital transactions, electronic records, and facing brand new threats like AI-generated deepfakes that can perfectly mimic someone's face and voice. It's a whole new ballgame.
So this creates a huge challenge. It puts notaries like you right on the front lines against some really sophisticated fraud. So, what's the plan? How do we adapt when the very nature of reality seems to be shifting?
Here's how we're going to break it down. We'll start with the problem notaries are facing today. Then we'll define the big solution, which is Rulona. We'll look at the practical, day-to-day changes it brings, talk about the serious consequences of getting it wrong, and wrap up with why this is all so incredibly important right now.
Okay, so first things first, let's really dig into the challenge at hand. The digital world has given us amazing convenience, for sure, but it's also swung the door wide open for fraud on a scale we've never seen before.
One of the scariest new threats is something called synthetic identity fraud. Criminals use AI to take bits of real, stolen information, like a social security number from one person, a name from another, and combine it with completely made-up details. What they end up with is a totally new, fake identity that is just incredibly hard to detect.
And just to give you an idea of the scale we're talking about, financial services firms are projected to lose over $23 billion to this kind of fraud by 2030. This isn't just some minor issue. It's a full-blown crisis that absolutely requires a modern, solid system of verification.
So, how in the world do we fight back against that? Well, this brings us to the solution, a standardized legal framework built specifically for these modern challenges. The answer is Rulona. It stands for the Revised Uniform Law on Notarial Acts. The best way to think about it is like a universal operating system for state notary laws. It's designed to get everyone on the same page so that notarizations can work smoothly and securely across state lines in our digital world.
Now, you might hear a few similar acronyms floating around like M&A or MENA, and they're also influential models. But RULONA is the one we're focused on because its main goal is that uniformity. It's all about creating a consistent standard from state to state.
And this framework has been evolving. The original version back in 2010 was a big deal. It laid the groundwork for notarizing electronic documents. But the really critical update came in 2018, when they amended it to authorize remote online notarization, or RON, using audiovisual tech. That was a game changer. And this brings us to a really key distinction. With e-notarization, the documents might be digital, but the signer is still physically right there in front of you. With remote online notarization, RON, everything is digital. The signer is somewhere else entirely, and you're connected through secure audio-visual technology.
Okay, so we've covered the what and the why, but what does Rulona actually mean for your day-to-day work as a notary? Well, it means some big changes, new powers, new tools, and some really important new responsibilities. Under Rulona, you're likely going to need to complete some new training and probably pass an exam. You'll need to get an updated official stamp, you'll have to keep a much more detailed journal for every single notarial act, and yes, that includes things like oral oaths. And if you're doing remote notarizations, you absolutely have to use state-approved, secure, tamper-evident technology. And let's zoom in on that new stamp for a second. It's no longer just your name and state. Rulona is very specific. It has to be a rectangular stamp, and it must clearly show your name, your notary ID number, and your commission's expiration date.
Now, it is so important to understand that these rules are not just suggestions. States that adopt Rulona have very serious penalties if you don't follow the law, even if you make an honest mistake.
Look, failing to follow these rules can mean your commission gets suspended or even revoked for good. You could face criminal charges. Just failing to properly ID a signer is a misdemeanor in North Carolina. There are hefty fines, and you could be hit with massive civil lawsuits. There was one case where a notary was sued for $250,000 for failing to take a thumbprint. The consequences are real.
And you know, the stakes are incredibly high, not just for the notary, but for the people you serve. Just listen to this comment from a real person. It shows the devastating human cost when a notary cuts corners. Because of that one failure to follow procedure, this family was dragged through a costly and painful probate process.
And this brings us right back to where we started, this modern dilemma of digital fraud.
It highlights the absolute need for a trusted human safeguard in our transactions.
In this world of deepfakes and synthetic identities, you'd think the answer is just more tech. But technology alone isn't enough. In fact, experts in AI security will tell you the same thing. That human element a notary provides, that trust, discernment, and judgment, it's actually more essential than it has ever been.
And that, right there, is the true power of Rulona. It provides the legal foundation for you, the notary, to be that trusted human element. It gives you the clear standards and the authority to do your job securely and consistently, whether the signer is sitting across the table from you or is halfway across the globe.
It's pretty clear that Rulona is a huge step forward. It's helping to protect the integrity of our most important documents. But it also makes you wonder, what's next? As AI gets even more powerful and the lines between what's real and what's fake get even blurrier, the role of the notary as a guardian of trust is only going to become more and more important.